I always believed fairness would eventually prevail. That if I did the right thing, paid the bills, stayed loyal to my family, and made sacrifices without complaint, I'd be valued. But some betrayals don't come from strangers. They wear familiar faces and sit across from you at brunch, sipping mimosa with secrets. My name is Donna, I'm 38, and what happened during my sister's wedding weekend shattered everything I thought I knew about loyalty, love, and the fine line between family and manipulation. If you've ever wondered whether your silence is being mistaken for consent, this story is for you. Before we begin, let me know in the comments. Have you ever found out a family member did something behind your back that changed everything? Tap like if you've ever had to learn the hard way who really has your back. The sun sparkled off Lake Sunapee, making everything look deceptively serene. We were on the deck of the Lakeside Hollow Resort in New Hampshire, surrounded by white linen, fresh flowers, and enough pastel dresses to blind a bird. It was Karen's post-wedding brunch, her perfect wrap-up to a very expensive, very orchestrated weekend. My younger sister, radiant in a soft blue sundress, moved through the crowd like she owned it all. And honestly, she kind of did. I was still in scrubs when I arrived. I'd driven straight up from a 12-hour ER shift in Boston. Didn't even have time to shower. But I smiled, toasted, and sat quietly in the background. That's how it always was with Karen. She got the spotlight, I gotta hold it. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've worked my whole adult life to support myself and my family when they needed me. I've never minded being the steady one, the one who shows up, pays the taxes, fixes the leaking roof, keeps the thermostat working at Christmas. So when Karen tapped her champagne glass and said, "Can we just take a moment to thank Donna?" Without her, our childhood home wouldn't even be standing. I smiled. Until she added, "Which is why I'm so honored Mom and Dad officially signed it over to me last month. It'll stay in the family, and I'll take good care of it, just like you did." My mimosa froze mid-sip. I looked at my parents. They were clapping. My voice caught in my throat before it even formed a word. I had spent years covering that mortgage. I paid for a new roof after a tree limb came down in that storm. I paid the property taxes the year Dad's pension got cut. I paid for the plumbing, the exterminator, the front porch steps when Mom tripped on them. And they gave it to her. Quietly. Legally. Permanently. The brunch chatter blurred into white noise. Karen leaned in to hug me, mistaking my silence for joy. Can you imagine that? Finding out your family home, the one you kept afloat, is no longer yours? And you weren't even told? I didn't make a scene. I didn't scream or cry. I simply stood up, set down my untouched plate, and walked out onto the lake path behind the resort. If they noticed, they didn't follow. I sat on a boulder at the water's edge and stared at the ripples. My heart was thudding like a metronome out of time. The betrayal didn't just sting, it hollowed me. They knew what they were doing. That's why they hadn't told me. That's why they waited until a brunch full of extended relatives and smiling cameras to announce it, packaged neatly as a, quote, gift of gratitude. But it wasn't gratitude. It was theft, and they expected me to smile and swallow it. Not this time. Not anymore. The drive back to my mountain cottage should have calmed me. The lake roads were dotted with sleepy birches and empty cabins waiting for summer, but my hands gripped the wheel tighter with every turn. What kind of people spring a betrayal on you during brunch and then toast it? I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry yet. Mostly, I felt cold, like someone had flipped a switch inside me. I spent the rest of Sunday in silence, walking the trails behind my cottage, replaying every moment from the past 10 years. The times I sent money without asking questions. The holidays I hosted. The weekends I drove up to shovel snow off the roof after Dad's back gave out. The house they'd just given to Karen. On Monday morning, my mother called. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you feeling after the big weekend?" I stared at the phone. The casual tone, like nothing had happened, made my skin crawl. "I'm processing," I said flatly. A pause. Then, "I know it was a surprise. But you've always said you didn't want to live in that house long term. And that means it's okay to sign it over without telling me?" Another pause. She switched tactics. "Well, Karen and Mike are thinking about starting a family, and they really needed the stability. And you've got your little mountain home, your job, your space. We just assumed, right, you assumed I'd stay quiet. Donna, don't be dramatic, she snapped, her sweetness curdling in an instant. We thought you'd be happy for your sister. I didn't answer. Then she added, too casually, your father and I have been thinking it might be time for us to downsize, and we thought maybe we'd come stay with you for a while. Just while we look for something new. You've got space. The nerve. I could hear it now. The real reason for this call. This wasn't a conversation. It was a setup. So let me get this straight, I said quietly. You gave away the house I paid for, and now you want to move into mine? She huffed. Sweetheart, don't twist things. We just need a little support right now. You're always saying how peaceful your place is. No. Silence. I said no, I repeated, calmly this time. I'm not your backup plan. Not anymore. Her tone shifted again. Sharp. Offended. I can't believe how selfish you're being. After all we've done for you. That was when I hung up. Not because I was angry, but because I could finally see the pattern. Every sacrifice I'd made, every favor I'd extended, every bill I'd quietly paid, it had all fed this delusion that I existed to serve, that I was the sturdy shelf they could stack their choices on, and now, when I declined to play along, I became selfish. They weren't asking to stay with me. They were expecting it, like I owed them. But I didn't. Not anymore. That night, I wrote a list. A physical, handwritten list of everything I'd contributed to the family home over the years. Receipts, repairs, mortgage payments, times I'd stepped in. And next to that, I wrote a single word. Enough. I didn't expect peace after that call, but I wasn't prepared for what came next either. It started subtly. A few comments from extended cousins under Karen's wedding photos on Facebook. Vague posts about some people forgetting what family means and, quote, greed in sheep's clothing. I scrolled past them, unsure if they were about me. But the next one wasn't vague at all. Karen posted a photo of our childhood home with a caption, "Finally ours." After years of being treated like second best, it feels good to be trusted with something real. Some people only give to control. We give because we love. Then the floodgates opened. Suddenly, relatives I hadn't seen in years were commenting and sharing her post. My cousin Trish wrote, "So happy for you, Karen. Shame on anyone who tries to hold that kind of generosity over your head." Someone else added, "Always knew Donna was a bit calculated." I stared at my screen in disbelief. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was an ambush. They were painting me as bitter, ungrateful. The sister who tried to control everyone with her money, then got angry when people stopped needing her. And Karen, she was the victim, the poor younger sister who had finally been trusted with something permanent. What made it worse? My parents were liking every post. They didn't defend me, they didn't clarify. They watched the story twist and harden like ice, and they nodded along. I hadn't said a single word publicly, but somehow I'd already lost the narrative. The messages started coming in private too. "Donna, are you okay? I saw what Karen posted. I didn't realize you two had fallen out. Do you want to talk?" But I didn't want to talk. I wanted to scream. Instead, I turned my phone off for 2 days. The silence felt like oxygen. Maya came up that weekend, my closest friend since nursing school. She brought groceries and stayed on my couch. I didn't ask her to, but she did anyway. That's what real love looks like. No manipulation, no bait and switch. Over mugs of tea, I finally let the words spill. They made me feel like I was doing something wrong by saying no, I said. Like declining to be used made me cruel. Maya shook her head slowly. "You were never cruel. You were useful. And now that you've stopped being useful on their terms, they're rewriting the story to make themselves the heroes." I nodded, hollow. "They're so convincing, though, and everyone's believing it. That's because people believe what makes them feel comfortable. And nothing's more uncomfortable than realizing the stable one has limits." That hit me hard. I'd spent my life being the reliable one, the steady one, the helper. But what no one tells you is that the role comes with a muzzle. You're expected to give, but not feel. Support, but not break. And God forbid you set a boundary. Suddenly, you're the problem. By Sunday night, Karen posted again. This time it was a video. Her and Mom in the kitchen of the old house, laughing while baking something. The caption read, "Making new memories in our forever home." Some people confuse ownership with love. The comment section exploded. The likes doubled, and I watched in quiet horror as aunts, uncles, and second cousins commented things like, "Glad you finally got what you deserved, Karen." Some people forget where they came from, but not you. No one asked where I was in the video. No one wondered aloud why I wasn't baking alongside them. They'd already chosen their villain, and I was it. So I did the only thing that felt like truth. I unfriended all of them. Quietly. No announcement. No drama. Just distance. If they needed a villain to feel better about their choices, let them have one. But I wasn't going to keep auditioning for a role in a story I didn't write. It was a quiet Thursday night when the doorbell rang. I was curled up with a blanket, trying to forget the online circus my family had turned into a public parade. The lake fog had started to roll in, curling around the trees like smoke, and I'd just started to feel something close to peace when the doorbell shattered it. I assumed it was Maya. Maybe she'd forgotten her charger again. But when I opened the door, it wasn't her. It was the police. 2 officers. 1 man, 1 woman. Both in dark jackets, standing rigid under my porch light. "Donna Whitmore?" the woman asked. My heart stuttered. "Yes. What's going on?" "We received a report regarding a wellness check on your parents, Eleanor and Gordon Whitmore. They're currently on your property." I blinked. "What?" That's when I saw them. My parents. Sitting stiffly on the porch, swing like they were actors in a staged photo. 2 overnight bags sat beside them. My father nodded at me, as if we were all playing some kind of weird game. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. Dad stood slowly, his hands trembling in that dramatic way he always used when he wanted to seem fragile. "We had nowhere else to go, sweetheart." "Donna," the male officer interjected, "your parents say you evicted them from their home and refused to let them stay here. They also allege you've denied them access to necessary medication." I stared at him, stunned. "Are you kidding me?" The woman officer raised a hand gently. "We're not here to accuse anyone. We just need to get a full picture. Do you mind if we come inside for a moment?" I shook my head. No, I'm not letting this into my house. I'll talk to you on the porch." My parents watched the whole thing, like they were in a courtroom drama. I could practically hear the silent script in my mother's head. Poor, aging parents. Ungrateful daughter. Look how cold she is. Just look. I turned to the officers. They weren't evicted. They gave away the home I paid for behind my back. And now they're trying to move in with me without asking. I said no. That's not a crime. My mother piped up from the swing. "She's exaggerating. We only needed a few nights." "You'd think our daughter could spare a bed for her own parents." "She posted online that we were no longer welcome," Dad added with practiced hurt in his voice. "We're old. We're vulnerable. What choice did we have?" The woman officer gave me a slow, assessing look. "Do they have another residence?" "They transferred the family home to my sister Karen, who lives there now, with plenty of space, I might add." The male officer glanced at my parents. "Is that true?" Neither of them answered. It was quiet for a beat. Then the woman officer sighed. "Donna, we're going to make a note that this appears to be a civil matter, not a criminal one. There's no sign of neglect or abuse here, but for your own protection, you might want to document everything, in writing, just in case they escalate." My father's jaw clenched. My mother sniffed like she was on the verge of tears. And I stood there, on my own porch, with officers giving me advice on how to protect myself from my own parents. The absurdity of it made my throat burn. After the officers left, my parents stood to collect their bags. "You've humiliated us," my mother hissed under her breath. "How dare you act like we're strangers?" "No," I said, "not strangers, just uninvited." They didn't respond. They walked down the path to their car, a shiny rental, by the way, not exactly a picture of financial ruin, and drove away in silence. I stood there until their headlights disappeared into the trees. Then I went inside, locked the door, and leaned against it. I was shaking, not because I was afraid of them, but because I'd finally seen it clearly. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. This was performance, escalation, public image control. They weren't trying to come home. They were trying to create a scene, to make me the villain they needed. And if the police showing up on my porch was their latest tactic, I knew I had to be smarter. Because this was no longer a family issue. This was a campaign. 2 days passed. I didn't sleep much. Every car that slowed near my driveway made my heart stutter. Every shadow on the porch light made me check the lock. Again. You don't expect to feel hunted by the people who raised you. But here I was, a nurse practitioner with an iron spine at work, flinching at family voicemails like they were summonses. Then came the knock. It was late afternoon, right as the sky began to dim into that soft New Hampshire lavender. I checked the peephole. A uniform. One of the officers from the other night. The male one. I hesitated, but something in his stance, hands tucked calmly in front, eyes lowered slightly, made me open the door. "Ms. Whitmore," he said, not quite smiling. "Do you have a moment?" My stomach tightened. "Is this about the wellness check?" "No." "Well, not exactly." He cleared his throat, glancing behind him like he didn't want to be overheard. "Mind if I speak plainly?" I raised an eyebrow. "By all means." He looked me square in the eye. "Off the record? Your folks have a bit of a reputation around here." I blinked. He shifted his weight. "Last year, there was a situation with a neighbor, something about unpaid debts and false claims of financial abuse. Another time, a cousin filed a complaint about coercion involving a will, all dismissed. But let's just say this isn't the first time your parents have involved authorities to settle private scores." My lips parted. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you don't strike me as a woman who deserves what's being done to you. And I'm not allowed to give advice, but if I were you, I'd start a paper trail." My throat tightened. "I already have." He nodded once, then looked down. "Good. Keep it going. You didn't hear this from me, okay?" "Understood." He paused before leaving. "Families like this, they don't want resolution. They want obedience." With that, he turned and walked down my porch steps like a man who'd just broken a rule, and didn't regret it. I closed the door, my pulse thudding in my ears. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt stronger. But all I felt was hollow, because part of me still wanted to be wrong. Still hoped this was just a misunderstanding gone too far. But now I had confirmation, evidence, a witness. If only whispered. They'd done this before, to others. And now they were doing it to me. That night, I pulled out every document I had. Copies of bank transfers, texts asking for help, the house deed that excluded my name entirely. I scanned, uploaded, organized. It felt like treating a wound. Slow, painful, but necessary to heal. Then I opened a new file on my laptop and titled it, "Property Protection Case, Whitmore Estate." Because if they wanted a performance, I was ready to play defense. But this time, I'd be the one holding the script. I didn't cry when I filled out the paperwork. Maybe I'd done enough crying already. Or maybe some part of me had been waiting years for a reason to put everything in writing. Filing a property protection order sounds dramatic until you've stood on your porch with officers asking if you're withholding medication from your own parents. Until you've watched your name rot online while your sister basks in curated sainthood. I filed it quietly at the county clerk's office. The clerk, a woman with a soft gray bun and a sharp efficiency, barely blinked when I explained. "Family deed transfers," I said, "and unwanted attempts to reoccupy my residence." She nodded once. "We see it more than you'd think." I believed her. The paperwork itself was clinical, but what it represented, that was personal. I was drawing a line in ink, not with tears or apologies, but with state-recognized boundaries. When I stepped out into the cold March air, the wind felt different, like it was carrying pieces of me back into my body. Still, I knew paperwork alone wouldn't stop them. So I made one more call. There's a man named Cal Grant, a private investigator, Maya's friend from college back when she interned at a law office, and Cal was the guy they called when someone was hiding assets or falsifying insurance claims. He's one of those men who says little and listens hard. When I explained the situation, there was no dramatics, no surprise. "Family fraud," he said flatly. "It's practically its own category." "I don't want revenge," I told him. "I want clarity. I need to know what they've done behind my back." He nodded, scribbling in a worn notepad. "Then I'll need bank names, addresses, and any financial documents you've kept from when you were contributing to the house. Deed transfers, old bills, loan records." "I've got them all," I said, filed and time-stamped. He looked up then, eyes sharp. You don't just want clarity, Donna, you want proof. He was right, because in a family like mine, where truth bends around image, proof is the only weapon that doesn't get rewritten. Cal worked fast. Within 48 hours, he'd uncovered something I never expected. It was a Tuesday morning when he called. His voice was even, but there was a tension under the surface. Donna, I think you'd better sit down. My stomach dropped. What did you find? I pulled the refinancing paperwork on your parents' old house. The one they gave to Karen? Yeah. Except they refinanced it 6 months before the transfer, took out nearly double the remaining mortgage. That makes sense, I said. They probably needed cash to… No, he interrupted gently. They didn't just refinance it. They did it in your name. I blinked. What? There's a signature, your signature, and a co-borrower line listing you as responsible for repayment. They used your identity, Donna. I stared at the wall, unseeing. They forged my name? I whispered. He sighed. I've seen it before. They probably had access to your social, old documents, maybe a utility bill in your name. It wouldn't have been hard, but yeah. They've tied you to a loan that nearly doubled the debt on that house. And now? They've gifted that house to your sister, free and clear. My knees buckled. It was never about gratitude or stability. It was about offloading the burden onto me, then dressing it up in ribbons and bows for Karen's perfect life. Can I fight it? I asked. With the right attorney and documentation? Yes, Cal said firmly. Forgery is serious, especially when tied to real estate fraud. I hung up and sat in silence for a long time. You grow up thinking betrayal will feel like a stab, but sometimes it's a quiet signature on a line you never saw. When the shock wore off, I called Maya. She answered on the first ring. They forged my name, I said. I'm listed on the refinance for a house I don't even own anymore. There was a long pause. Then, okay, then we go public. Her tone was iron. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. You don't have to be ready, she said. You just have to be done. That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea and my laptop. The mountains stretched out in front of me, silent and steady. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was escaping the world up here. I felt like I was preparing for it. They'd written their version of our family history in whispers, in posts, in sly smiles over brunch mimosas. Now, I was about to publish mine with footnotes. The hardest part wasn't speaking up. It was hitting send. The editor at the Granite Valley Ledger, a mid-sized local paper with a surprisingly viral reach, responded to my submission within 3 hours. Are you willing to be named? She asked. I hesitated, because being named meant being exposed. It meant opening my front door to the world and saying, this happened to me. No shadows. No anonymity. Yes, I typed. Print it all. And they did. The article dropped on a Friday morning. Nurse practitioner says family forged her name in mortgage scheme while publicly calling her greedy. It included screenshots of the forged documents, dates, legal commentary, a brief mention of the police visit, and it included a photo of me standing on the steps of the courthouse with the protective filing in my hand. Eyes direct, face unreadable. I looked like someone I barely recognized. Within hours, the article spread. First, local, then regional, then national. By Saturday afternoon, my inbox was flooded. Messages from women, mostly, some strangers, some former classmates I hadn't spoken to in a decade. My parents did the same thing with my student loans. My brother put our mom's house in his name without telling me. Thank you for saying it out loud. The internet may be a minefield, but when it comes to truth, it's also a megaphone. And for the first time, I wasn't just defending myself. I was part of a chorus. Karen was silent. So were my parents. But silence doesn't erase timelines, or signatures, or screenshots of congratulatory Facebook posts that now read like confessionals. On Sunday, the Ledger published a follow-up piece. Public support floods in for nurse practitioner fighting family fraud. They linked a GoFundMe set up by a reader to help cover legal fees. I didn't ask for it, but people gave anyway. That's when the calls started. Not from friends, not from strangers, from reporters, from lawyers, from advocacy groups who said, "You've just described elder abuse in reverse, and we need you to speak." But I wasn't doing this to become a spokesperson. I was doing this because someone had tried to erase me, legally, financially, personally, and I needed the record corrected. That week, I contacted a real estate fraud attorney in Boston. Her name was Karina Vega. Sharp, empathetic, the kind of woman who wore silence like armor. She read my file in under an hour, then looked up with a calm, dangerous kind of smile. "They picked the wrong daughter," she said. That night, Karen finally broke her silence. Not to me. Of course not. But on Instagram, a filtered selfie in front of the family home, her hand on the railing like a sad movie character. The caption read, "I never wanted to be at the center of anyone's pain. I just wanted to start a life with love. I wish healing didn't come with so much hate." The comments poured in, mostly pity, a few attacks. But my favorite was from a user I didn't know. "Love doesn't come with forged documents." By midweek, Karen had turned off her comments. I thought that would bring relief. But what it brought was stillness. Not peace, just stillness. Like the air right before a storm. Because I knew them. I knew my parents. And I knew Karen. They weren't done. They were regrouping. They'd lost control of the story. And now they'd try to take it back. So I kept preparing. Karina filed a formal fraud complaint with the state. Cal delivered a notarized report of his findings. And I added security cameras to my porch, my driveway, and the side path by the woods. I didn't want drama. I wanted documentation. I wasn't just defending my house. I was defending my voice. Because here's the thing about power. It doesn't always come from anger or fire or fists. Sometimes, it's just telling the truth with your whole chest, even when your own family calls it betrayal. The moment I saw the thumbnail, my stomach twisted. A blurry screenshot. A woman, me, walking across the clinic parking lot. The caption read, "Is she really stable enough to be a healthcare provider?" It was posted on a small blog by someone named concerned_NH_mom, but it didn't stay small. Karen had shared the link. So had two of her friends. Within hours, the article was on Facebook, Twitter, and even a parents' forum I'd never heard of. The allegations were vague, but insidious. Mental instability, emotional volatility, a pattern of workplace outbursts. None of it true. None of it sourced, but damaging nonetheless. The post included a doctored image of what appeared to be a patient complaint form, entirely fabricated, according to my supervisor. The kind of false narrative that infects fast and heals slow. It was Karen's final gambit. If you can't control the facts, discredit the narrator. I didn't find out from a friend. I found out from a patient. "Are you okay?" she asked gently at the front desk. "My daughter showed me something online and, well, I just wanted to check." I felt the floor shift under me. By the time I got home that night, I was trending in all the wrong places. Not in headlines, but in whispers. The kind of digital murmur that turns reputation into rumor. That evening, I called Maya, and my hands shook the entire time. "She's trying to end my career," I said. "That blog post is going to haunt every job interview, every board certification." "No, it's not," Maya cut in, "because you're not going to let it. It's already out there. Then we answer it. Not with rage, with truth." That night, we crafted a single statement. One I posted from my own account, publicly and without bitterness. In the past week, a false and anonymous blog post has circulated attempting to smear my mental health and professional conduct. I want to be clear. These claims are fabricated, legally actionable, and designed to intimidate me as I pursue justice for a real estate fraud committed against me by members of my own family. I am not ashamed of protecting myself, and I won't be silenced now. I posted it with a scan of the clinic's formal letter, signed by the director, confirming no disciplinary action, no complaints, and their full support. Within hours, the tide turned again. The post went viral. Because what Karen didn't count on, what manipulators never count on, is that people recognize truth. They feel it. And when someone tries to twist reality too far, it breaks. Loudly. Nurses across the country reposted my statement. Therapists, doctors, women's rights groups. People were tired of the smear playbook, especially when it came wrapped in family drama and veiled misogyny. One comment hit me the hardest. This is what happens when a woman stops playing along, and the people who benefited from her silence try to punish her for finding her voice. It was signed, a daughter who finally said no. Karen deleted the blog link the next day. No apology, just vanished. But it was too late. The lie had boomeranged. Now, even her own followers were questioning everything. Some of the same family members who'd cheered her on weeks ago started messaging me. Cautiously, quietly. I didn't know they forged your name. I just saw the article. I'm so sorry. Even my Aunt Sandra, who hadn't spoken to me in years, left a voicemail. Donna, if you ever want to talk, I'm here. I think I got the wrong impression. But I wasn't interested in reclaiming my reputation through forgiveness. I wanted restoration. And now, the legal gears were turning. Karina filed a defamation claim tied directly to the blog post. The IP address was traceable. The email connected to Karen's work account. She hadn't even tried to cover her tracks. The lawsuit wouldn't erase the pain, but it would put a price on it. I didn't need her money. I needed the world to know that when someone tries to weaponize your mental health to silence your boundaries, they are not protecting anyone. They are punishing you for growing stronger. And the world? It was finally watching. The courthouse smelled like waxed wood and tired paper. Everything about it felt designed to shrink you. High ceilings, heavy doors, the kind of echo that makes you second-guess your footsteps. I sat in the front row with Karina beside me, our documents in neat folders. My hands were steady. My heart? Not so much. Across the aisle, Karen adjusted her blazer with the same precision she once reserved for recital costumes. Her expression was unreadable. My parents sat behind her, smaller somehow, quieter. Like maybe, just maybe, they'd started to understand the difference between control and consequence. The case was technically civil: fraud, identity theft, defamation. But it carried weight. Every eye in the gallery reminded me this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about who's allowed to rewrite the truth and who finally gets to say, no more. When they called me to the stand, I didn't hesitate. I raised my right hand, swore to tell the truth, and sat in a chair that had probably held 1,000 other stories like mine. But this one? This was mine. Karina's voice was calm as she led me through the basics. My background, my contributions to the family home, the signed mortgage papers. Can you tell the court how you first learned about the refinancing? She asked. I nodded. It was through a private investigator I hired. I wanted to understand how the deed had been transferred. That's when he discovered the mortgage had been refinanced under my name, without my knowledge. And did you authorize this refinancing? No, I said firmly. I never saw the paperwork. I never signed anything. My name was used without my consent. She handed me a photocopy of the document and pointed to the signature line. Is this your signature? I looked at it. Looped, slanted, convincing to a stranger, but not to me. No, I said. It's a forgery. There was a pause. Long enough for the words to settle. Karina continued. How did this discovery affect your relationship with your family? I didn't answer right away. The silence pulled every eye back to me. I stopped speaking to them, I said. I realized everything I had done to support them was being used against me. They didn't see me as a daughter, just a resource. The judge nodded slowly. Thank you, Ms. Whitmore. Karen took the stand next. And that's when the truth split from the mask. Her lawyer tried to spin it, said Karen had no knowledge of the refinancing, that she was gifted the house out of love, that any misunderstanding was due to strained emotions and miscommunication between family members. But under cross-examination, her calm cracked. Karina asked, when did you first learn the house had been refinanced? I'm not sure, Karen answered. You signed the title transfer the same month. Did you not notice the mortgage was double? I trusted our parents to handle it, she snapped. It wasn't my job to. But You accepted a deed to a home that had a fraudulent mortgage on it, and you benefited from that. Didn't you? Karen's jaw tightened. I didn't know about the forgery. Karina nodded, then showed the court emails Karen had sent, ones Cal had recovered through legal channels. Emails where she asked my mother, should we tell Donna about the refi, or will she find out eventually? Silence. The judge raised an eyebrow. Ms. Whitmore, did you write this? Karen looked down. Yes, she whispered. My parents never took the stand. Their attorney advised against it. Too emotionally charged, they claimed. I knew the truth. They couldn't sit up there and lie under oath. Not anymore. The paper trail had outgrown their storytelling. When closing arguments ended, the judge didn't render a verdict right away. She said she'd issue her ruling in writing within the week, typical for civil cases. But honestly, it didn't matter, because something shifted in that courtroom. The silence that followed Karen's email confession said more than any verdict could. They saw me now, not as the villain, not as the dramatic daughter, not as the one who couldn't let things go. They saw me as someone who'd been used, and who finally said, enough. Outside, Karina turned to me. You did everything right, she said. No matter what the judgment says, the damage is done. For them. I nodded, because for the first time in months, the air didn't feel heavy. It felt mine. The envelope came on a Monday morning. No grand pronouncement, no courtroom drama. Just a white legal packet slid into my mailbox with the state seal stamped on the flap. I stared at it for a long minute before bringing it inside. I didn't open it right away, because I already knew, and yet I had to see it in writing. The judgment was 6 pages long, clinical, precise. But nestled within the language of the law were the words that mattered most. The court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Donna Whitmore. It went on to describe the forged refinancing as intentional fraud, declared the mortgage void, ordered my name removed from all associated debt. The court imposed fines on my parents for falsification and ordered restitution for legal fees. And the defamation suit against Karen? Upheld. She was required to post a formal public apology or face escalating damages. I sat very still. Victory is quieter than you think. There's no music, no crowd, just relief, and beneath it, something hollow. Because even as I read those lines, legal recognition that I'd been telling the truth all along, I wasn't celebrating. I was grieving, not just the betrayal, but the years I spent believing that loyalty would protect me. I left the papers on the table and stepped outside. The mountains were still there. The wind still moved the pines. Nothing about the world had changed, except me. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Maya. Verdict's in. You okay? I typed back, yes, but also, no. Because how do you explain that even winning can feel like a kind of loss? Later that night, Karen posted the apology. It was cold, scripted, probably written by her lawyer. I deeply regret the statements made about my sister during a difficult time. They were untrue and should not have been shared. I take full responsibility for my actions. It had the emotional warmth of a tax form, but the comments beneath it? Brutal. People weren't buying the act anymore. And my parents? Silent. Still. Not a call, not a note, not even a message pretending to care. That, more than anything, made it final. They weren't confused. They weren't misled. They had chosen this path, chosen to protect the lie over the relationship. And I had chosen, finally, not to follow them down it. That night, I lit a fire in the hearth and curled up in my favorite chair. I reread the judgment, not because I doubted it, but because I needed to see, in black and white, that my pain had been seen, recognized, named. Because when someone rewrites your reality, the most radical thing you can do is publish your own truth. And I had. Spring came slow in the mountains. One morning, I woke to birdsong instead of static in my chest. No unread messages, no articles to defend, just sunlight warming the kitchen tile, and a silence that no longer felt like exile. It felt like breath. I took a job offer across the state, a community clinic in a coastal town that reminded me who I was before I became someone else's safety net. I packed light. left the porch swing, the bruised memories, and the copies of legal papers filed in a neat drawer. I didn't tell anyone I was leaving, just left a key with Maya, and a thank you note folded into the drawer of my old writing desk. A month later, I started therapy. The real kind. Not the kind you do alone at 2 a.m., convincing yourself you're over it. Dr. Seaborn asked me once, if you could rewrite your family's story, would you? I said no, because this version, this hard, painful, liberating version, taught me how to listen to myself. The last time my phone rang with my mother's name, I let it go to voicemail. I didn't listen. I didn't need to. Some things don't deserve a second chance. Just closure. This isn't a story about revenge, or even justice. It's about choosing peace when chaos calls you home. It's about finally asking, what do I want my life to feel like? And answering, quiet, whole, mine. If you've ever had to walk away from family to protect your peace, I see you. Drop a comment below. Tell me how you found your strength. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories about finding your voice when it matters most. Because your story, just like mine, deserves to be told.